to get this city where it's functioning. There's too many things that are broken in the city and make it really difficult to live here.
What has being a reporter taught you not only about New Orleans, but about the narrative?
I got to see, some of the best and most wonderful things about our city. But I also, unfortunately, had to see some of the most tragic parts of New Orleans, including I was in the state legislature as a state rep for 8 years, and now I've been on the council for more than 7. So 15 plus years in elected office and public service here in the city of New Orleans. This isn't just a piece of paper. This isn't just a random committee meeting, a random vote. I mean, all of these things have real life implications.
Helena Moreno is the Emmy-winning journalist turned city council president, now running for mayor to deliver a cleaner, safer, and more accountable New Orleans for everyone.
Being a state representative, what are some of your core values and how do you apply that in how do you represent?
One thing that you have to, if you're going to be a good public servant, that you have to do and force yourself to do is that you're going to have to tell your friends no.
Who is Helena? Tell me a little bit about who you are, where do you come from, and how did you even get here?
Oh, wow. My journey here was not something I would have ever expected when I was a young person. I mean, all that I ever wanted to do and be when I was in high school and even before that is all I wanted to do and be was a news reporter and anchor. That was it. And I would, in high school, watch all the news reporters and all the anchors and knew everybody. And like, that was it. That's who I wanted to be. Which was kind of an interesting career that I chose because I had a lot of problems with reading and writing because my first language is Spanish. I was born in Mexico, so my first language is Spanish. So it always took me like a long time to, get my reading levels up to where they needed to be. But still, journalism and being a reporter was all that I wanted. And so then, went to college and as I graduated, I put all my tapes together. And this was a time when you had to put them all on VHS. Okay. So I like your real actual tapes together to send out to go get a job. And I sent out like 82 tapes all across the country. I was willing to move wherever the job was. Right. And I sent out 82 tapes and I was so looking forward to getting that first job. And Brent, nobody called me back.
82 things?
Nobody called me back. So I was like, oh my gosh, and this is a time when like the haters get in your head and they're like, see, I told you weren't going to do this.
No
you weren't going to, yeah.
Couple content creator.
No, there was no TikTok at the time. There was no TikTok. So, I kept pushing, kept calling people, kept sending more tapes. And I got a job in Savannah, Georgia. Okay. So didn't know anybody in Savannah, had never been to Savannah, Georgia. But I was like, I got to get my foot in the door to make my dream come true. Got a job in Savannah, Georgia. I said, I'm so excited to have this job. They sent me out on my first live shot. I'd never done live shots before, and I was terrible. And they were like, we never want you to do live shots again. But what was great about Savannah is it really taught me, how to be a good reporter, how to do the live shots, how to edit, how to put content together, how to be a good communicator. And that's when WDSU called. And they said, we want to bring you to New Orleans to be a reporter. And so I started at WDSU during the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news as a reporter. And then I was promoted to the investigative team, really working on a variety of different issues, looking a lot into City Hall in New Orleans at the time. And then from that point on, I was promoted to the anchor desk, and I was roughly, I want to say mid to late 20s. So, by that age, I had accomplished my dream, or what I thought was my dream, right? What I thought was my dream. And, now we're coming up on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And it was Hurricane Katrina that really changed my life and my direction and brought me into public service. And what I mean by that is, so I'm a news anchor, the morning anchor, and Hurricane Katrina's coming. So they send like the whole main anchor crew, all the main people, they sent them off to safety in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay.
And they had you.
And they had me here, Margaret Orr here, like the whole morning team stayed here along with the reporters. So then we have, of course, this horrific storm here for the aftermath of the storm. And then in that year that followed, I felt like my job as a reporter now was one that wasn't just about writing and telling a story, but it was really about bringing people home and making sure that those who were in charge of rebuilding our city were held accountable. And so I felt like I had this kind of deeper purpose in my role, but also a deeper purpose in helping my community. But then when, roughly 2008, something like that, end of 2007, we started to get back to kind of the old ways of TV news, the promotional stuff, how do you get the most ratings and that kind of thing. And that's when I really said, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. I felt like I needed to do more for my city, more for my community, which is why I made the decision at the time, and some thought it was foolish, to leave my dream career.
Dream job.
Leave my dream job. I was a young woman making, good money at my dream job, what I'd always wanted to do since a kid. But I left that so that I could go into a life of public service. And at that time, I said, let's go big or go home. So I ran for United States Congress. At that time, the voters did send me home. And so, I was like, that was a real punch in the stomach. But I, at that time, though, had made these connections and had different really strong women around me who said, Helena, this is just a part of your journey. And if public service is where you want to go, there is a spot for you. And Mary Landry was one of the big people who always helped and supported me. Diana Bajwa, oh my gosh, what an anchor, And so I ran for the state legislature in 2010 in a special election and won and got into the state legislature. And that's really how my career in public service then began.
That's really, really interesting. And I didn't know the detail of your history in becoming a public servant. What has being a reporter taught you not only about New Orleans, but about the narrative and how things are portrayed versus how things actually are?
Right. Well, one of the things that obviously being a reporter taught me is I got to see, some of the best and most wonderful things about our city, all the amazing festivals and celebrating amazing people who we have in New Orleans. But I also, unfortunately, had to see some of the most tragic parts of New Orleans, including, being at numerous, countless really murder scenes and being there when, a loved one or the mother of a victim arrives to see that it's her son or daughter who is deceased. And that never leaves you, And so having that deep understanding and seeing that kind of tragedy kind of puts you in a mind frame that when you're in public service, it's these issues that we talk about. These aren't just issues that you're seeing on paper. There's real people, that you're impacting with whatever piece of legislation you're changing. And that's when I got into the legislature. That's something that I always tried to tell some of our young legislators who got there, that these bills that you're reading, these stacks of bills that you get that just have quick little changes, here and there, this isn't just a piece of paper. This isn't just a random committee meeting, a random vote. All of these things have real life implications. So whether it's an issue on criminal justice, whether it's an issue on, how we look at healthcare, all of those things impact people's lives. And I think that seeing so much of our city as a reporter really has helped me always realize that then the work that I do has implications on people in our city and on the state level, people across the state.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was in college, they would look at a political science major as like an easy major or something that's not really has that much impact. And then you would have, let's say, like a nursing major or something. Okay, it's a hard degree. You're the creme de la creme of the campus, essentially. And one of my professors told me that if a nurse makes one mistake, it can result in the death of one life. But if a state's representative makes one mistake, it can result in the death of countless lives.
Absolutely.
So the responsibility of representing on the state level is very, very difficult. And I commend you for taking that stance to represent our people. So let's go in a little bit about core values. New Orleans politics is crazy. There's a lot of shady stuff going on, a lot of, we were built on corruption in New Orleans. So being a state representative, what are some of your core values and how do you apply that in how do you represent and also avoid what I would say would be a lot of temptation coming from, people who don't want to see you play fairly?
Yeah. So I was in the state legislature as a state rep for 8 years, and now I've been on the council for more than 7. So 15 plus years in elected office and in public service here in the city of New Orleans. And I'll say this, when I got to the legislature, I was really like, wow, with all these people who want to be your friend all of a sudden, you know? And there are people who I think some kind of fall for that, but these people are not really your friends. These are a bunch of different lobbyists who just want something from you. These are people who want something from you. I've always been, very blessed and lucky that I keep a very small core group of family and friends around me. And like, those are like my real, like my rocks, my support group. And so, I kind of distanced myself from all of that. They used to call me the old lady in Baton Rouge, even though I was one of the youngest legislators. A reason for that is that I really wasn't interested in going on all the dinners and whatever and the wining and dining. I like to really just be home like at 8 o'clock. I like to go there, do my work. When I could, I'd like to come home and be with my husband, be with my family. And so they like to call me the old lady because I wasn't I really was about the work. But one thing that you have to, if you're going to be a good public servant, that you have to do and force yourself to do is that you're going to have to tell your friends no. You're going to have to tell your friends no. I mean, and that can be hard. It's like, these are people who you may see socially, who you know well, and there's different things that they may want, but you have a job to do. And so if they're really your friends, they're going to understand that you're doing your job and that you're going to have to tell them no. So
Yeah, definitely got to tell the friends no. Let's shift gears a little bit to education. New Orleans, we always have been represented as this educational test lab, if you will. Like, they're doing a lot of experiments with education down here. You got the charter system, you got public and privatized interest. Who's calling the shots?
Right.
What's your stance on education, and how do you feel that we can grow as a city in terms of educating our youth?
Yeah. Well, a couple parts. One has to do with, education, whether we're talking about high school and below high school. And then there's the next piece that I want to talk about, which is really about vocational education and really having real pathways to high wage employment. So when it comes to, our public schools here in New Orleans, it's like, no doubt about it. It's like, it's all over the place and people don't even know exactly who to go to get answers to. There's a school board, but the school board doesn't control all the schools, and there's all the different charters. And no doubt about it. I mean, I think that makes it hard. What I would like to see is, obviously all of our schools elevated, no doubt about it, but more consistency in certain things that'll help our students, including transportation. I mean, the whole issue of busing and getting up in the, 5 o'clock in the morning to catch like that, I think is something that I think that the city could potentially partner with the schools to help resolve and help improve. And I do believe that just overall that there needs to be greater partnership with the Orleans Parish Schools and the city of New Orleans. What we are currently dealing with right now with the city council trying to give the money to the schools, we thought this was a really good start to improving on that partnership. It's like, okay, the settlement, we can either fight you forever, or at a time when you need help, we can go ahead and get this settlement done, give you all the money, and then you all can move forward when you're dealing with this budget hole. Unfortunately, as you know, that's stuck in court and the mayor has opposed it. And so that's a real problem. But there are other ways that we can partner, including how do we use school facilities and how do we use those school facilities and NORD facilities so that we can provide more opportunities for our youth, whether it's anything from after school programs to additional NORD programming. Like, all of these things to me are common sense solutions, but it takes someone actually getting in there and committing people to do that work to create those partnerships for this type of level of collaboration to happen. But I see a lot of opportunities there for the city and the schools to work together. So often people tell me, Helena, don't worry about the schools, don't worry about the educational system in New Orleans. If you're mayor, you don't really have anything to do with that. But I push back on that. It's like, but just because, statutorily, I don't. Like, I can't control what's going to be, what's going to be taught in schools. I get that. But that doesn't mean that I can't have involvement in the educational system in New Orleans.
Yeah. And when we think about these after school programs or different things we can add to it, there's a lot of funding concerns. So like, you may have a program that gets started and then 3 months later, now it gets exhausted because of lack of funding. Any ideas on how to get some more money pumping into our academic system?
So the city council recently started a youth and culture fund. And the reason why we did that is because we saw actually a lot of different nonprofits providing a lot of great services, but they weren't getting the level of funding that they needed. And this is after school programs, any type of youth music programs, youth recreational programs, all those things. So we started this about 2 years ago, and that's $7 million that we put into different nonprofits, and we did it again this year. And when I'm mayor, I'm really going to be a big promoter of continuing this fund, because there has been pushback by this current administration saying it's too expensive, we shouldn't be doing it. But I actually believe this is exactly what we need to be leaning into. There's so many great groups that are doing great work. They're the boots on the ground, actually getting the work done. But yes, I mean, it's like, especially with what we're dealing with now with the affordability issues in New Orleans, I get it that not a lot of people have that extra cash to give to these nonprofits. But if the city can help, they're already doing the work. Let's just amplify their work.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, you said earlier about not just education, but okay, K through 12 or vocational.
Yes.
So explain your stance on vocational. How do we connect these opportunities to K-12 and even college?
Well, and that's the thing. I think that the connections aren't occurring. Like, for example, if you take a look at, the number of jobs that we need to be filled just at City Hall, just at the Department of Public Works, we're having a really hard time in filling these jobs. But at the same time, we're not creating any workforce programs that are going to directly be educational opportunities that are going to say, hey, Brent, this is the program educational opportunity that we're going to give you. And then your guarantee is this job, this high paying job. And that's what we should be doing with different industries across the city, whether it's digital, whether it's film, whatever it could be, whether it's clean energy, all these things. It's those pathways that aren't happening. So there's all these different programs that are available. You can go to Delgado, take classes, you can go get your CDL license, all these different things. But where is a real pathway? So just because I got my CDL license, is there a company right here that's guaranteed me a job? I mean, so same with, if I'm, going into a film program, is there a specific studio that's guaranteed to help me? Because one of the things that I'm hearing with film, and this is really an opportunity where it's a low barrier to entry into the field, and there's great opportunity for high wages, but you need to be trained. And we get some big motion pictures coming into New Orleans, big motion pictures, but you know what they do? They bring in their crews. They bring in their crews from California or wherever they're coming from, because they don't feel that we've got the skilled laborers to be able to participate in these. And so where we're missing out then in the New Orleans economy are the mid-level films, because they're like, well, we like to go to other cities that have a trained up workforce. And so that would be right there, like a perfect example of the studios building up programs, partnering with Delgado. What can we do to create these pathways? Because like I said, there's a lot of opportunity in film to make big money and to excel, to go higher and higher. Even if you don't have any type of college degree or anything like that, you can make a ton of money.
Yeah, and New Orleans has so many different opportunities for growth. And it shifts gears. We're shifting gears into more of the economic development conversation and innovation. Who do you see innovating in New Orleans? And we're going to transition that into how do we cultivate our talent to be actually, what's what I'm looking for, experienced enough to get these jobs and retain them.
Yeah. So I think we have a lot of room for growth in obviously tech and digital media. We've seen some startups here in New Orleans that have sold for tens of millions of dollars. So we have that network there, but it's how do we expand it, and then how do we create, like Houston has done, all these amazing STEM programs within their schools that then directly are, once again, the pathways into getting into STEM fields. And so that piece, I believe, can definitely be improved. And we're seeing some good collaboration with LCMC and Ochsner in particular. So you just saw Ochsner do a partnership with Xavier University on a new medical school. And I think that that's amazing. And we have the new bio district, which is coming online, which it was my legislation that helped create the TIF for the bio district so that we can create real opportunity within the downtown area. But once again, I mean, it's to your point. It's if we're going to build up the bio district and we're going to bring, let's say, a center of excellence. It could be for whatever. It could be for a center of excellence to cure whatever disease it could be, or it could be a center of excellence for heart health or for brain health or whatever. Okay, great. So then what are we going to do to partner with our universities to make sure that we have the skilled workers, the skilled employees, the skilled techs, and whatever else is necessary to support what the bio district is bringing? So it's all well and good that we create these new job sites, but if you don't have the workers to fill it, it's hard for these job sites then to succeed, or they just bring in people from other cities.
Can you tell me a little bit about the bio district?
Sure. So the bio district was actually a boundary within the downtown New Orleans area that was created legislatively quite some time ago by Karen Carter Peterson. I think it was even previously or right when I first got to the legislature. So around 2010, 2012, maybe a little bit before that. And what it was meant to do was to start generating funding to incentivize the creation of more bioinnovation type of work within the downtown area. Unfortunately, what happened is that, the board and the bio district, there were some issues. I'm just going to say there were some issues. Okay. There were some issues. So all of those issues have now been rectified. There's a whole new board. They now have the opportunity to raise real dollars with a TIF that we did, a local and a state TIF. And so they'll be generating millions of dollars to be able to incentivize, that level of development. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. But what I've told the bio district folks is, okay, if we're going to be really serious about this, then we really need to start hiring an executive director for the bio district that's going to be serious, wake up every morning with the task of making sure that the bio district is a success, and staffing this bio district up with people who are going to work with this ED to every day, wake up every morning to how are we going to bring a center of excellence to the bio district, and so that's the next step. So it's great that we're going to get this money, but you can't just have a board trying to run, what potentially could come to that bio district. You need someone who's going to be on point, on task every day on what it's going to take to develop that area.
One thing that I notice about New Orleans is we're big on history. So we literally make our money from being historic. And I think that stifles innovation to a degree because we're incentivized to stay traditional. Do you think there's any way that New Orleans can have the best of both worlds where we balance maintaining our identity but also innovating in certain spaces?
So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I don't think it's that we're so much about our history. I think New Orleans is just a place that doesn't change that much. That change, it's just sometimes hard to stomach that change. And and I will say this, there are some times when I don't blame the people of New Orleans being very, concerned about potential change, because there have been some things that have happened within our city that have not been, great for the people of the city. And so they get concerned. And that's why with everything that I do and everything that I'll do as mayor is that it's all about transparency. It's all about bringing the people of New Orleans with you as we're talking about these big projects, as we're talking about development, as we're looking at what can we do for some of our communities where they are begging for economic development, like New Orleans East. I mean, what I can't believe is the fact that the economic development for department for the city of New Orleans has 1.5 employees. So one employee, as the director, and then another one who works part-time at the economic development department and part-time in other city agencies. That's it. Do you think that that's enough to create the level of development and jobs that we need in the city of New Orleans? And I get it that there's other departments that are working on this topic as well, but the economic development department, in my opinion, should have individuals working there, and including a person who should just be focused on New Orleans East. Just focus on New Orleans East. Once again, just like I talked about the bio district, this person is going to wake up every morning and say, what can I do for New Orleans East today? How are we going to bring more jobs and opportunity to New Orleans East? What needs to be focused on now, and coordinating with city agencies to make sure that stuff happens. And so, whether it's finally bringing that grocery store to New Orleans East, I mean, that needs to be. Well, the thing is, it's, the economic development department now is going to study that again. It's a $200,000 study on how to bring a grocery store to New Orleans East. I can tell you how to bring a grocery store to New Orleans East.
ChatGPT can tell you how to bring it.
You dedicate one person to this job and talk to all the grocers and ask the grocers, what is it going to take? What do we need to do? Figure it out and just get it done. It doesn't have to be like, what are we going to go study? I can tell you where the sites where it needs to go in.
Yeah. And it's to your point, it's not rocket science. And as a former reporter, communication, something that I kind of want to pivot to a little bit. You said that the transparency and communication is really, really important.
Yeah.
And you have a history or experience in communication. So are there any things you would do differently to keep the people informed on a kind of a more regular scheduled basis instead of us leaving it up to our assumption on what's going on behind the scenes?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, just with myself and the media, like, I mean, it is very rare if I don't accept an interview request. I mean, unless I'm just like, that topic doesn't really have to do with me. You know? But I mean, I really try to be as transparent as possible, sending out as many news releases. And then as mayor, I think you have to have regularly scheduled news releases where you can allow the media to ask you whatever questions, you know, they have. And I know that that's hard. It's hard and it's tricky, but I mean, if you're really going to be transparent and bring the people along with you, they have to hear from you. And, you know, I think sometimes it's hard to deliver information that you know that the people of the city are not going to like, but it's better to be honest and let people know the truth than to not say anything at all. Because when you don't say anything at all, you know what happens? Then somebody else is going to take that narrative and spin it around and make up rumors or whatever. So I'd rather people just hear the truth from me. And it's like, this is what it is. And this is what I'm trying to do to fix it and go that route. But, you know, as I've always tried to do, I handle a lot of the comms myself. I just do. And so, but I plan on having a really strong comms team, just like I have as a council member, and not only release, of course, information to the media, but do what I can to now do stuff on social media as well, because that piece is huge. I mean, honestly, I put more information on my social media now than I send out in news releases. I just do, because it's like, and I get a longer platform too. I mean, when I do interviews for any of the big television stations here, I mean, the interviews that they show of me are 20-second bites, 30-second bites, quick Helena sound bites. Yeah. And so and I'm like, what about the part where I said this? Or what about the point I was trying to make? It's like, you took this story into something else. And you know, obviously on social media, I can lay it all out and say, this is what I'm talking about.
Control your narrative.
To do. Right.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. And last question about innovation, a quick one. Do you have any thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, how it can apply to New Orleans in any way, shape, or form?
So I do think that, you know, AI is becoming a greater tool for cities to use. And so that certainly is something that I've started to explore. But Brent, I'll be honest with you. I mean, at New Orleans City Hall, we are dealing with like 1982 technology, it feels like still. I mean, so there are some major technology upgrades that we need to begin with. I mean, we have systems that just don't talk to each other. When I was trying to do the DBE scorecard with the amazing group, the Collaborative, and just so we could see how many minority businesses are contracting with the city of New Orleans, what we realized is that, okay, the system where you're bringing in the vendors is not talking to the system that is putting all the vendors together as to, you know, who's a minority business, who's in the, and so there, and there was no way, and I don't understand this because I'm not an IT person, because I was like, okay, well, just have the systems talk to each other. They're like, they can't, they won't. And I was like, how can they not? And so then you have to then find a new system that you input both sides and then merge them. So it's just the cost and all of these things. And I'm not an IT person, but I do think that, you know, just like other cities are starting to use AI, you know, when you're, let's say, getting a bunch of 311 reports, and how do you make sure that you're, you get a synopsis on, like, let's say there's a pothole on Bayou Road. Okay. So there's a pothole on Bayou Road. And instead of, you know, reading 26 reports on it, those 26 reports are put into one quick synopsis, and you can be like, oh, okay, this is the last call was this. And it's just, so I think it could be very helpful, but it's just, you know, implementing that at City Hall, I do believe will be a lift, but not one that can't be done. It just, it will be a bit of a challenge.
It'll be a challenge. And it's funny you mentioned the pothole, because that's the perfect segue into our infrastructure conversation. And this is one question that I've asked every candidate. Like, what's your plan to solve the pothole problem?
Yeah. So the good thing about the potholes and infrastructure issues, and obviously they're major. I mean, the whole thing with like construction projects lasting like forever, just like, months at a time, you can't get out of your driveway or can't drive down your street. But so we know that there's a model that works to actually get some of these big issues solved. And that model we actually saw during Super Bowl. The model is everybody getting together, all departments working urgently toward getting stuff resolved, working with outside agencies as well, like Entergy and, whoever else could be, GNO Inc. or whoever else can assist us, and also with our state and federal partners. And so that type of collaboration and coordination, urgently working in that way, shouldn't just be happening when we have an event like Super Bowl. It should be the standard, which is actually one of the things that I had talked to the mayor about, a couple years back when we had a huge spike in violent crime back in 2021, 2022.
I remember that.
I was like, Mayor, you got to get everybody at the table. You got to get everybody at the table. We got to treat this like a hurricane. We have to, collaborate, coordinate. And of course, I get it that they were like, sure, Helena, whatever. We're not doing that. But that is how I would operate as a mayor. That just this is a level of coordination and collaboration that will be the standard in my administration, because that's the only way to actually get things done. And by the way, guess what? That's what other parishes do. And that's how they're constantly solving problems. So when you see an issue, you recognize it, you've got everybody at the table. What's everybody going to do to fix it? If a project on Bayou Road has all of a sudden taken 4 months when it was supposed to take 6 weeks, all right, well, who are we getting there? Who's getting with the contractor? Who are we fining? Are we going to sue? Where's the law department? Do we need to sue? Like, what does their contract look like?
Right.
But that's how it works. If not, you're going to be calling all different people, sending a variety of different emails. You may not get responses, and then nothing's going to happen. So that's the key, that level of coordination and collaboration, working urgently like there's always a Super Bowl coming.
I like that. That's a quotable right there. And what infrastructure projects would you prioritize outside of potholes? That's the regular small stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the street repairs are still significant in some neighborhoods. We were just in Edgewood Heights in District D, and their street was supposed to be repaired, but now that money's gone. And so we need to figure out, it's like, what are we going to do to continue to fix streets that were promised to get repairs? And now we're having issues with, is there going to be funding? So, I think the funding piece is going to be a challenge, but still street repairs and getting those street repairs done, I think, is really important. And then as far as, major infrastructure issues, we still need to take a look at, and I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but it has to do with Entergy and grid hardening. After Hurricane Ida, we lost all the transmission lines coming into the city of New Orleans. And because of that, we were stuck in the dark much longer than we needed to. I made a promise after Hurricane Ida that I would make our city stronger so that we could help defend ourselves more and be more sustainable if there were these level of storms, and get the power back on quicker. Everyone told me, Helena, this is going to be $1 billion investment. There's no way that the ratepayers in New Orleans can afford it. And I agreed with that. And so I said, we're not going to put it on the backs of ratepayers. So instead, what we did is I got a series of federal grants and also a big lawsuit that we had with Entergy. We won, and we applied that money toward this hardening of the grid. But we have to make sure that those projects actually get off the ground, and that happens, because so far they've been kind of slow to come around. And I get it, there's been all these types of delays, but as mayor, even though I would no longer be the regulator of Entergy, I would certainly be pushing on Entergy to make sure that those projects, which you receive now hundreds of millions of dollars for to do in the city of New Orleans, that those get done. And the good thing about those projects too is that they bring jobs. They bring, different types of skilled workers to these projects. And also the other piece too, which I think is really good, is that it adds a new component that we've been really working on, which are these microgrids, which is creating different centers around the city that are a battery with solar panels on top, so that even if you lose power, it's okay, because you've got the solar, you've got the reserve, which is how we've set up the community lighthouses across the city. And so when there's a storm now, these community lighthouses are ready to go. They're powered with solar power, then they've got the battery, and the city isn't rushing around trying to find generators and put generators at community centers.
Right.
And so expanding upon that, expanding on those microgrids, to me, is also another key infrastructure project, because we can put these in senior centers. We can put these at grocery stores. We could put them if we need to. Yeah, clinics. And so that's another piece that I'm working on now. I'm trying to secure $32 million roughly to get that done before my term on the city council is over, and working with groups like Together New Orleans to get that done.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Any thoughts on environmental challenges or how New Orleans can lead in the environmental or global environmental efforts, considering that we have so many environmental challenges in Louisiana?
Yeah. Well, one of the, like I just mentioned, dealing with clean energy, I think is really important. And, what can we do to make our buildings also more energy efficient? Don't even get me started on City Hall. Okay. I mean, that thing is just like, my windows aren't sealed. I can't tell if it's hot or cold outside because it's always a crazy temperature in my office. Like, it's just, so, there's a lot of things that we can do with our buildings. We're making our buildings, pushing our buildings to be more energy efficient, making sure that, we have more of these microgrids around, I think is important. When we're talking about dealing with water, there's different ways that we can create these retention ponds around our city, which I think is important as well. But, overall, it's really concerning right now because I'm seeing this movement on the federal side to eliminate a lot of our grants that we were utilizing, for example, like electrification stations and things like that. And so that is really concerning that, we had millions of dollars coming down here to certain nonprofits to help on some of these climate initiatives, that those are now gone, including, how about this? There's a group that helps us with tree planting. Okay. It's called Soul, and they've done tree planting in our city for the past 20 years. They've created these beautiful canopies across our city. And obviously this is really important because we have, parts of our city that are very, very hot during the summertime. And so what can we do to increase tree planting? So they had a $1 million grant or $2 million grant from the Department of Forestry, and unfortunately totally canceled. And so they did their final planting in Holly Grove like 2 weeks ago, and they're like, we don't know what we're gonna do.
I think I saw it on social media or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the national media did a story on them too. And one of the reasons why they were eliminated was there was like some kind of DEI provision in their contract that they obviously were like pushing forward with, and that they were excited to support. And because of that, like,
They cut the whole thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually insane. And those things a lot of those things are happening right now with the new administration. Yeah, it's a lot of things. And to move into the advocacy, which is going to be a mix between, how do you advocate for us when it comes to things like this? Like, how do you go in and then fight the good fight of making sure that we don't lose resources and stuff to changes in leadership? And we're also going to talk a little bit about your crime plan and how you're advocating for a safe New Orleans. So first, with advocacy, as mayor, you would need to advocate strongly for New Orleans. How do you plan to navigate that, considering that we're such a unique location or a unique city?
So first, let's talk about what's happening on the federal level, because over the past 100 days, it's been like, wow. So, 100 days ago or so, or whenever this was, we received notice that there would be a freeze of federal funding. Well, that was like a little scary because the city of New Orleans roughly has about $450 million worth of federal money and grants. So can you imagine the hit that would take to us? And then we have a lot of pass-through dollars through the state, and half of the state's budget is federal funding. So you saw the drastic pushback that occurred across the country. And of course they were like, oh, never mind, we're not doing that executive order anymore, but still some grants are still getting canceled, right? Yeah. So then we started to see grants getting canceled, including for some of our USDA feeding programs that of course help kids in our city, help families living in poverty, those getting eliminated.
Wow.
Money for victims of sexual assault, assistance for victims of domestic violence. All these different yes. And in fact, they'll be coming to the city council tomorrow to talk about these issues and their impacts on the people who they serve and help. And so then I was like, okay, this is crazy. And then it was just like one thing after the next. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to go on this little bit of a talking circuit to just anywhere I went, and started to tell people, it's like, hey, what's happening up there is not just happening up there. Okay. It's having implications on us here. And this is how. And so even today I was over at the Gust high rise, and and talking to the seniors about the changes coming to Social Security and all, and they were like, wait, what's going on? And all this confusion that's happening and potential changes that could happen to Medicare and Medicaid. And it's like, and I keep telling everyone, whether it's at a rally or whether it's to the seniors or whether it's, to students, whoever it could be, you have to speak up.
Yeah.
Everybody has to tell the story of the impacts of all this because they want us to be quiet. They want us to just not say anything, not do anything, and let it happen. And only by pushing back do they backtrack on
Yeah.
things. And the thing is, it's like you're seeing pushing back. It doesn't matter what party you're in. You're seeing pushing back from his own party because of some of these moves are just so crazy and insane. I mean, the whole tariff thing, I mean, it's like everything from a cell phone. I don't have my cell phone with me right now, but a cell phone costs roughly, I don't know, $600, $800, something like that. There's a potential that cell phones could cost $2,300. Who's going to get a cell phone? Cars.
You need a beeper or something.
It's like, we're talking about cars, like immediately when the tariffs were announced, all of a sudden cars, went up at least $5,000. So if you were saving your pennies, saving your dollars to go and buy that car, you finally are like, I got the money. I'm going to get the car. I can put the down payment down. Oh, wait, never mind. No, I can't. And then, I think the market went back up today, but I mean, let me just tell you, I was one of those dummies that looked at their retirement account last week and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just never going to not work. So
become a reporter again.
Yeah. I mean, for real or something. Yeah.
So a lot of things are happening. What are you going to do to kind of push back on it? Like any thoughts that you've been having? I know you went on your feet and running.
Yeah. So for example, I talked about the grants. One of the ways I've been pushing back on that is, okay, well, when you get a grant, you have to have an executed contract between the mayor of New Orleans, the federal agency receiving that's sending you the money, and then like a couple other signatures. So if you have a contract like that, I'm like, there is no way you can take our money.
No way.
You just can't. I don't care that you have a new CEO. You can't say that you can't send me a letter that you want the money back. They tried to do that with a Department of Energy grant that we had. It was a $55 million grant to deal with what I just talked to you about, the grid enhancements. Yeah. So sent a letter. They're like, hey, because you had, this provision in here about including minority businesses or something like that, your grant is now in jeopardy.
That's crazy.
And so I'm on the phone with, Entergy and everybody else. And I was like, hey, we have signatures from everybody. This is an executed contract. This wasn't something that was like under negotiation. We're still having, no. This is done. Just because you have a new CEO doesn't mean you get to, I just had to give you this money back. Like that's not happening. So that's one way that we're pushing back. If there's ever a move to try to yank some of our grants that way, it's like, we're just going to fight it. And other cities are fighting it that way as well. The second piece is, of course, you got to speak out. The third piece is remind people to vote. Voting is critical. And then don't forget that the Louisiana legislature goes into session on April 14th. And so there are, of course, some things there that we really need to take a look at and push back against. Once again, there's going to be changes to SNAP that the legislature is trying to move forward with, saying that, there's now certain items that they're going to prohibit people from buying.
I did see that.
It's like, look, I mean, it's like people can't make choices as to, what they should be buying for their families. It's like the legislature is going to say what their children should have or what they should have, and so so there's going to be legislation that's not great. I worry about that. Look, let me start by saying this. I think it's great to have partnerships with the state.
Right.
But when the state wants to come in here and take over stuff, then I have a real problem.
Got a problem.
And so I believe that my experience from when I was a legislator has really built in me that toughness and also the level of strategy that's necessary to deal with the folks up in Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, there were some bills that people thought I'd never get through, including when I took on the NRA to help victims of domestic violence and ensure that when there is somebody who's arrested for domestic violence, that they are prohibited from having a firearm. Everyone said there's no way you can pass that in Louisiana because the NRA is going to come out and you can't beat the NRA. Well, myself and busloads of women who came to the legislature, we got those bills through and we beat the NRA and created some of the strongest protections for domestic violence in the state of Louisiana. But that's what it's going to take. It's all of us together working for what is best for the people of New Orleans that's going to get the message across and get things done the right way.
Nice. And to talk a little bit about crime for a second.
Sure.
I think it was last week you announced your crime plan. For those who haven't studied it, tell me a little bit about it. Quick little summary.
So, we released our crime plan last week or the week before, and then tomorrow, it'll be hot off the press. We got our jobs and economic development plan. You got kind of a sneak preview on some of the things that are going to be in it. So, but the crime plan that I put out is really heavy on crime prevention. And I just believe that there are some key things that we can do to make our city safer by ensuring that crime doesn't even happen. So I talked about the importance of ensuring that, youth have opportunities. So really revamping NORD. Youth opportunities, meaning that we need to ensure that we have robust summer job programs every single year. There used to only be 250 slots for summer jobs. I boosted that 2 years in a row now to 1,000, and also partnered with Youth Force NOLA to add an additional 750. But I truly believe we should double that. And so having summer job opportunities, also key. One of the things I've always been pushing for, and now as mayor, I know I'll be able to build, is a reentry hub for citizens returning from incarceration. It's a one-stop shop where you can get all the services and referrals for what you may need all in one place. Because right now we have great organizations working to help reentry citizens, but it's all over the place. So when you're already dealing with transportation issues, with housing issues, all these things, it's hard for you to get all the work. But what if we just had a hub where you could go to one place and get the level of assistance that you needed? When it comes to NOPD response times, we're much better than we used to be. And I think one of the reasons why is because when Michelle Woodfork became chief, she and I really started to lean in, and Chief Kirkpatrick has followed up with this as well, saying we cannot recruit enough officers. Every place around the country is having issues recruiting officers. So if we can't recruit fast enough, what can we do to take paperwork, stuff that's not an emergency type of situation, off of the plates of commissioned officers, so that they can be responding faster to emergencies.
Right.
So we started to bring in trained professionals to do non-emergency police reports. You get your bike stolen from your garage, you don't need a commissioned police officer to come to you. There's a disabled vehicle, on the street. You don't need a commissioned officer sitting there with a disabled vehicle. So that's how we've added, roughly 300 civilians to the NOPD to take some of this paperwork, these non-emergency type of situations off of their plates. And we've reduced response times by 2 hours, and now making the average response time an hour, which is much better than it used to be. So those are just like some of the key things. And obviously on the recruitment thing, it's just not happening fast enough for NOPD officers. So one of the things that I think is really important now is you have to start looking at bringing in kind of experts, where other cities are doing. They're bringing in expert recruitment firms to bring in different officers, national talent, and so all that they're doing every day is making sure that these people get in. Having 2 or 3 officers try to do this every day is just not. We're stuck at like 940, including recruits. We're just stuck there. Like we can't seem to get beyond that point. So now it's time to take a different approach. Try something new, because the same old's not working.
So if there are any policies, if the voters could remember one thing from this campaign, like one specific thing, what would you want them to remember about your initiatives or policies or recommendations, and why?
I would say that if they can remember anything about why I'm running for mayor, or this, is that, I want to get this city where it's functioning. Okay. There's too many things that are broken in the city and make it really difficult to live here. I told you before, I have the model to actually get stuff done. And so now it's time to get the basics right. Make sure that when you're driving down the streets are smooth. Make sure when you call police that, police officers respond. When you go to City Hall to get a permit from the Safety and Permits Department, you're not waiting a year. Okay. So that's what you can get and expect from me, that I'm going to get this city functioning again, make it easier to live here, because if we can do that, the sky's the limit for the city of New Orleans. And honestly, that's the level of service that the people of New Orleans deserve.